Pittsburgh, my beloved Steelers. So, again, the thing that is, remarkable to me about the Steelers, I don't think they know what they want to be. And here's what I mean by that. Mike Tomlin has preached as much as anybody, much as any motivational coach in the NFL. The standard is the standard. That is his quote. We all think Mike Tomlin's standard is the standard. And yet, simultaneously, the Steelers have employed over the years in the Mike Tomlin era, which spans nearly 2 decades now, some of the most enigmatic locker room cancers as you could possibly have. And in some cases, just bad guys. Santonio Holmes, obviously Antonio Brown, Chase Claypool is a diva. George Pickens is, as I've called him before, and I don't use this term lightly, a psychopath at times. Now you had DK Metcalf, which I'm fine with the move. That shows me, hey, we're spending money on offense. Finally, we have a true number 1 threat now. But DK Metcalf, most penalized receiver in the NFL since he came in. I believe I saw that stat earlier today. So, that's also a part of it. For the record, Big Ben Roethlisberger, love the guy, Hall of Famer, always appreciate his insight from his podcast on the Steelers. No one knows Pittsburgh as well as Big Ben does, but Big Ben was notoriously difficult. He was notoriously did not put any time in the offseason, according to Jay Glazer at Fox Sports. So the standard, it's like they should change it to the standard really only applies to like most of the guys, and everybody else you could just kind of go on willy-nilly and we'll be fine with it. I find it odd, or maybe consistent, that in a locker room that is already unstable as is, that already has veterans who are dying to finally have some playoff success, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, among others, and also as a locker room with George Pickens and DK Metcalf, that the Steelers see their solutions. By the way, again, locker room that's... And right now, a roster with a quarterback situation where, what they could use, could Pittsburgh as, youth and upside. They see the solution to those problems potentially as Aaron Rodgers, who's old, doesn't have the upside anymore, and of course, is, as I've called him many times, the worst leader at the quarterback position I've ever seen in my life. It's him or Jay Cutler. It is close. I used to give Cutler like a pretty clear advantage. What I've seen from Aaron the last few years now, post Green Bay, like I've been like, okay, it's that gap might actually be closer than we think. Aaron Rodgers is an objectively atrocious leader. If the Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin's culture, Mike Tomlin's standard is dead. Or at least is exposed. Because we've already seen cracks in the armor over the years. Antonio Brown, Big Ben, Chase Claypool, DK Metcalf, what's his name? George Pickens, Santonio Holmes, like guys with questionable character who Mike Tomlin has employed over the years because, hey, they help us win games. Fine. Big Ben won you Super Bowls. Antonio Brown was, for a time, the single best receiver in the game. A lot of these guys have had upside. Santonio Holmes was a Super Bowl MVP. Like, these guys produced. Just don't tell us that is the absolute, 100% standard. You come in, you be professional, it's football first. If you bring Aaron Rodgers in, that's rendered meaningless. And I think listen, we know the Steelers. If there's one thing we know about my Pittsburgh Steelers, it is that they are, the goal every year is mediocrity. Maintain the non-losing streak. Hey, Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. Guys, we're 9 years clear of the last playoff win. It's time to move on from that and be like, okay, that's really impressive. Don't get me wrong. It is impressive to go, was Mike Tomlin been there 18 years now without a losing season? Remarkable. Shout out to him. In the last 8 seasons, the Steelers have won 0 playoff games, and they've gotten trounced in all of them. Well, outside of the Jacksonville game where you lost a home playoff game to Blake Bortles and gave up 45 points. Since then, 2020, blitzed by the Cleveland Browns. The next year, blitzed by the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 years after that, blitzed by the Buffalo Bills. Last year, blitzed by the Baltimore Ravens. If Mike Tomlin is the motivation guy, the defense guy, why do you not lose, get torched from the first quarter on every single postseason game in the last 8 years? And so, listen, if you ask me what I want to do if I were running the Steelers, they just signed Mason Rudolph. Welcome back, Mason. All right, good locker room guy, solid backup quarterback in the NFL. If you ask me, start Mason Rudolph the whole season. And then in terms of the backup situation, I'd either take a call or make a call to New England for Joe Milton, draft a guy mid-round, as my guy Barry Grant Jr. always says. Quarterbacks are currency. You can never have too many of them. I mean, you can. It's a 53-man roster, but it's never bad to have an extra quarterback in the room. Never hurts you. That's capital. And you roll the season out. You win 6-7 games. I'm almost hoping at this point the non-losing season streak comes to an end, because at this point, listen, I know the Steelers are utterly petrified of being bad for one, clutch your pearls, maybe 2 seasons. But it would get them the requisite draft positioning to be able to rebuild a champion. Because if there's one thing the Steelers do exceptionally well in the draft, it's pick really good players. On the defensive end, on the offensive end, the Steelers are one of the best drafting teams in the NFL. I mean, few teams develop talent as well as Pittsburgh does. The problem with that is they just don't have the single most important position. And by the way, the offensive line isn't great either. They've got to develop an offensive line at some point, especially before you potentially get a new quarterback, a franchise-altering quarterback, hopefully, in next year's draft. But I think it is, if Aaron Rodgers is the solution, if they view him, by the way, if the Steelers are intent on going mediocre, or on being mediocre, again, just pick the other guy to help you go mediocre that already has a connection with DK Metcalf and isn't a locker room cancer and knows the playbook. Russell Wilson. Just bring him back. Listen, if Russell Wilson's the quarterback, you will be mediocre. You will be 9 wins, 10 wins, maybe sneak in the playoffs, maybe don't. Russell will get you there. Aaron, I don't know. Can we show you what Aaron's done? And by the way, for this graphic, we use the Aaron Rodgers beach photo. This is Aaron Rodgers in 2022. We took out the we took out the Achilles tear game against the Bills. So 223 pass yards per game, 56 touchdowns, 23 picks. Completion percentage 63%. Pass rating of 90. Record's horrendous, 13-21. That's bad. And by the way, 17 of those games are with the Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur. He has won 0 playoff games since 2020. He has gone to 0 Pro Bowls, or at least been voted to 0 Pro Bowls since 2021. At what point are we going to move on from the legend that is Aaron Rodgers, and he is a legend, to Aaron Rodgers today, which is an average quarterback, puts up empty calorie numbers on a bad team last year, an atrocious leader, injury prone. And by the way, even if you get to the playoffs, he's not very good. Since that Packers long ago Super Bowl win in 2010, he's 7-9 in the postseason, with some bad losses in there. Some blowouts, some losses to Jimmy Garoppolo, some losses to, I know Eli Manning had 2 great postseason runs, but still lost at home 15-1 to Eli Manning as the MVP of the league. Like, Aaron's got some bad playoff losses on his resume. He's got a Carson Palmer loss on his playoff resume. Like, it's rough. And so I think the Steelers would be out of their freaking minds to sign this guy. Out of their minds. And if they do, by the way, that's their prerogative. But it shows that the Mike Tomlin standard thing is kind of a farce. It didn't really exist. It's not really a thing that is able to be produced into, winning important games at the end of the year, which, by the way, I saw my guy Colin Cowherd pointed this out. I couldn't believe this. 5 of the last 7 seasons, the Pittsburgh Steelers, in December or later, have had a 3-game losing streak. So when basically in translation, when the games matter more from December on, playoff push in December, playoffs in January, and obviously if he gets the Super Bowl, great. 5 of the last 7 years, they've lost 3 games in a row. Almost like when teams get more tape on the Steelers, easier to figure out. Just saying. So signing Aaron would be a disaster of colossal proportion. It truly, truly would. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.